Alright, what's up guys? This is NinjaDeathStrike bringing you, I guess, a special little video. It's basically going to be a video blog, just something that I wanted to talk about, and normally I would probably write an essay just because I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker, but I figured, since I have the channel, I would try out doing a video. So let me know in the comments what you think about it, and maybe I'll do another one in the future. We'll see how it goes, but the thing I wanted to talk about today is playing to win in Pokemon. Some of you might recognize that title. There's actually a really great article from a competitive Street Fighter 2 player entitled Playing to Win, and I would highly recommend reading it for anyone who's interested in competitive play for any game, really. I'll definitely leave a link to it here in the description, but I wanted to kind of take some of the things he talked about and apply it more to the Pokemon scene, both the competitive battling scene and, to a lesser extent, the TCG. The main issue I want to talk about today is more prevalent in the competitive battling scene than it is TCG. So I'll touch on TCG, but it's mostly going to be directed at people who battle competitively on the DS or on PO. And before I get into the meat of my discussion, I want to take a short time to kind of mention a disclaimer here. What I'm going to talk about today is not addressed at all at people who like to play with original sets on their Pokemon or who like to come up with rogue decks. If that's your thing, more power to you. I have absolutely no problem with that. If you like using original stuff, and if you don't want to refer to Smogon or use a top tier deck or a standard archetype, that's fine. I not only do I not have a problem with it, I think that in a lot of cases it's really important for the game that we have innovators that come up with these new things. Without these people, we'd never get new standard sets. The game would never evolve. We'd never get new move sets on our Pokemon. We'd never come up with new archetype decks. So it's important to have innovators in the game. And if that's your thing, that's fine. I'm more going to talk about people who take that a step too far. And those are the people who insist that everyone else play like they do. And in regards to the competitive battling scene, this would be a large majority, not a large majority, but a large percentage of the Smogon haters. I'm sure you guys know exactly the kind of person I'm talking about. They never stop complaining about how evil Smogon is and how Smogon is the devil and has ruined the game. And while I don't always agree with what Smogon does, I can appreciate everything they've done for the game. Without Smogon, we wouldn't have really a competitive metagame, period. Whether or not you agree with the tiering system or some of their bans, without them you'd have nothing. So I think first and foremost we have to recognize that, and recognize that if we want to have any kind of organized play structure, we need someone like Smogon to set the rules for everyone. That allows us to know what to expect when we go into a match. We don't have to worry about someone putting our whole team to sleep or throwing out an Arceus in the middle of a regular battle. And that's thanks to Smogon, and thanks to the work they put in for free to take these statistics, test things out, tier things. And I think it's just really, I hate this word, but it actually fits here. It's really ignorant of people to just write them off without understanding what they do. And a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, the people that are doing this are doing it just because they want to make the rules to benefit them as much as possible. They only care about themselves. In all honesty, they're essentially doing the same thing Smogon is doing, but they're doing it worse and for worse reasons. They're doing it selfishly. For example, they'll post something about, oh hey, I want to battle, but I'm allowed to use Garchomp and Excadrill and No Sleep Claws, and Jirachi is banned, and Mew is banned, and Chandelure is banned because I don't like them. And if you comment on, hey dude, Garchomp's Uber, they will just go off on you like you've called their mother the worst name imaginable. They'll just spew hate at you about how you're unoriginal and Smogon fags are all the same and you have no creativity and blah blah blah. But honestly, they're just doing this so that they can win the game. And normally, these people aren't terrible battlers. I'd say most of the time they're probably above average, but what happens is they get to a certain point and then they kind of get comfortable with their play and then they just hit a wall and they refuse to try and get any better. They can beat the average player, and normally these people also have very large, very fragile egos, and they just get to the point where they can't accept a loss if it's because the other person is better than them. That phrase, better than them, does not exist in their mind. So if they lose, obviously it's because the other person is a cheater. And normally it's because the other person used a Smogon and just copied someone else's team and they have no skill. And if we had played by my rules, I would have won. And I'm sure you've seen these people. You know the arguments that come out of them. And I think that's really... It really bugs me as a competitive player. It just really irks me. And I've tried to have conversations with these people before, but they won't listen. They're already convinced that they're always right, of course. So there's no point trying to reason with them. But, they're really not hurting anyone but themselves, because they're playing in their own made-up metagame that no one else is playing by. No one wants to play with your stupid rules because they're stupid. No one wants to play in a metagame where every team is Tyranitar, Garchomp, Excadrill, Breloom, XX. That's not fun. The reason that Smogon has these bans is not because they hate you, although they probably do, because you probably suck. It's to make the metagame as stable as possible while also providing a chance for diversity. And really what's important is finding a happy medium. You don't want the game to be so centralized where everyone just uses the same team all the time, because that's not any fun. But you also don't want it to be so diverse that there's no way to plan a team to handle the expected threats. And that's why we have tiers, and that's why tiers are so important. That's why I'm perfectly fine with having a top 15, top 20 Pokemon in OU that you can expect to see a large amount of the time, because when you make a team, you can go through that list and be like, all right, how am I going to handle this stuff? And you can prepare your team to meet those threats because you know what to expect. And it also allows players to innovate and find a Pokemon that is underused and make it shine because people aren't ready for it. So I think it's really good to have that top 15, top 20 really, really heavily used Pokemon without having it be over-centralized or just absolute chaos. And, another great thing about Smogon is that they've given us so many other tiers to play in. So if you get sick of using these OU Pokemon, there's UU, there's RU, there's NU. Those are all great tiers where you can use different stuff. But when you bitch at people because you're bringing your NUs to an OU match and wondering why you're losing, or when you're bitching at people because you can't understand why people get upset when you try to bring your Garchomp and your Excadrill to an OU match, it's because people like to know what to expect when they go into a match, and because those tiers are there for a reason. So I think to those people who just can't accept Smogon's rules, you know what? Get over yourself. If you want to play the game, play the game. If you can find a handful of other people to play your own made-up metagame where you make your own stupid rules and do what you want, that's fine. Go off, play by yourself, and stop bothering the rest of us. But you have no right to come into a competitive scene and then demand that everyone else play by your rules. That's stupid. Who are you? You don't know what's best for the game. And as much as you might hate to admit it, the people at Smogon are probably a lot better than you. They probably play the game more than you, and they probably understand what's going on a hell of a lot better than you. Because there's not just one person who's making all of these decisions. It's a team of the top players in the game deciding how we're going to play. And yes, it does have its flaws. I'm not saying it's flawless. But it's a hell of a lot better than the chaos that would ensue otherwise, or to let one crappy battler come in and dictate the rules for the rest of us. So I guess that's what I wanted to say regarding the TCG issue. And now I'll talk about, or not the TCG, the competitive battling video game issue. And now I will talk briefly about the TCG. This is much less of a problem in the TCG because the competitive community kind of doesn't have any patience for these people. They're just ousted right away, which is pretty great. But I have seen these issues pop up a bit on the PTCGO website because there's a lot of new players there and a lot of less skilled players, I guess. Not to say if you play TCGO you're bad. You know, there's some really good players there too, but there's a certain subset of those people who they just hate EXs. And some of the really bad ones complain about all legendary cards, just like we get in the video games. You know, any legend is bad and should be banned, regardless of whether the card itself is good or not. But a lot of the hate is directed at EXs, and this one, I guess I have a little bit more sympathy for it, slightly. At least the core issue, not the people, because again, normally they're uninformed and loud and obnoxious. But the EX cards are, in all honesty, pretty broken. 170 HP basics is dumb. Mewtwo is too good. That card is ridiculous. But you know what? It's part of the game, for better or worse. And if you want to be good at the game, you're going to have to use it, or you're going to have a way to beat it. And that's all there is to it. These people who get on and bitch and moan about how no one's original, everyone uses the same 3 decks, and everyone just uses Mewtwo, and then it kills my deck, and wah wah wah. Like, deal with it. If you don't want to play with the EXs, either find a group of players who will play without them, which is certainly doable, or find a new game. The EXs aren't going anywhere, you know. They're part of the game now, and whether or not you like them, you're going to have to play with them. If you want to win, if you want to be good, you have to use EXs. You know, it's if you guys have watched my videos at all, my TCG videos, you know I love coming up with these goofy decks and trying them out and putting videos up with them. But I would never use that deck in a serious situation, in a tournament situation. It's fun to get on and goof around with, but if I'm going to play to win, you know what? I'm fucking going to use Mewtwo. And if you don't use Mewtwo, I'm going to beat you. Because Mewtwo is the best card in the game. And, you know, if playing competitively is not your thing, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you just want to get on and have fun with the cards and goof around with your friends, that's fine. But, again, when you come in and you go to expert game, and then you bitch about people who beat you with Mewtwo, you went to expert game. These are the expert decks. These decks get played because they're the best decks in the format. You know, yeah, your Volcarona, Houndoom, Emboar, Reshiram EX, Darmanitan deck. Okay, that's nice, you know. You've got this super elaborate strategy that you need to set up, and it does all these things, and that's really cool, but you know what? Just because no one else plays the deck doesn't make you original and groundbreaking and edgy. It means you're probably a crappy player, if that's really the deck you think should be winning. And yeah, if someone else plays Mewtwo, they're going to beat you because your deck sucks. But you know what? When these top tier decks face off against each other, there are dozens and dozens of little choices you need to make throughout the game that are probably going to determine whether you win or lose. You make one misplay against a skilled opponent, and that can be it. You're out. And that takes so much more skill to play than to just throw a bunch of cards that are the same color in a deck and call it original. So, you know what? For those people who don't like EXs, I'm sorry, but deal with it. So, anyhow, that is going to end my spiel. If you watched it the whole way through, thank you. Please leave your comments at the bottom. I'd love to know what you think about it. Feel free to bitch me out. I'm sure at least one person will, probably in all caps, but then we can all make fun of them together. And that's going to do it. So I hope you guys liked the video, and I will have more stuff come your way shortly. Thanks for watching, guys.